And
my question was about Hood not trying to use Lee when he finally got up, and whoever was left to try to hit Schofield while he was withdrawn.
I think they're so battered, they're just glad they're gone. And Hood didn't know what was going on up there. He didn't know the casualties of the next morning, what really happened. And we held on to the works. He even issued a congratulatory message at Nashville for the victory here. And although I understand why, because they left the field, the soldiers were saying, "Oh shucks, oh that's shenanigans. That's how can you call this a victory?" Yeah, we hold the field. Colonel Murphy, captured 17th Alabama, was brought over to Schofield on the Franklin Road. The rebel Colonel Virgil Murphy, and Schofield started tweaking him. And well, y'all got the hell whipped out of you here. And Murphy said, "Well, it's rare that the victors leave the field." And Schofield, "Get out of here. Go on, get out of here." But they saved their army, and they moved on to Nashville. They hadn't had any sleep for 2.5 days. Schofield slept for a day and a half. And the Confederates buried the dead, and the POWs buried their dead, and moved on to Nashville. It was 65 degrees until December 6th, and then it goes down. Rain, snow, ice went down to 0 by December 11th. Those horses are still laying out there on the way until Christmas Day of 64. And then you have the Battle of Nashville, December 15th, 16th, and now the retreat from Nashville. As I told you, fighting at Holly Tree Gap, as somebody here asked, where are you?
I did.
And, yeah, and you too. And then at Harlansdale Farm through the city, Hopes Alabama Brigade holding this trench line with Bledsoe's Missouri Battery and Eufaula's Alabama Battery, and they're fighting through the fields up to Winstead Hill. And then S.D. Lee's wounded there. The West Harpeth I showed you yesterday, 17th of December, that Wilson said the toughest fight of his life. And they make it on their way to the Tennessee line and get out of here. Hood thought about staying. The forest said, "You better take what you can, get the hell out of here. You're going to have the hell whipped out of you. And we can't hold this." And they went on to Tupelo, Mississippi. And are there any more questions? Yes, sir.
After this battle, does Hood believe he's now avenged missing them at Spring Hill?
No.
Is there any?
He knows what happened. Although he first wired Richmond said he lost 4,500. It's more like 7,300. Officially, they say 6,300, but we know it's about 7,300. But no, he didn't avenge nothing. How can you avenge someone? The Federals lost about 450 killed, 1,300 wounded, about 1,200 captured. He didn't know their casualties, but he knew what he lost. No.
So he didn't try to. He didn't try and portray it that he's now had a victory with this battle.
He did issue a congratulatory message to the troops about the victory. They held the field. Mm-hmm. He did wire Richmond that they held the field, and we lost great officers and blah blah blah. I'm not going to call him a liar on this because he didn't know the casualties yet, or the reports and whatever. But he knew at least 4,500, and it got on up more than that as they got into Nashville. Now, they didn't avenge anything, but they went on to Nashville and keeping the initiative. And see that blue flag on the Lotes House flagpole? That's the Hardy Corps flag. That's Claiborne's divisional flag. And I want to end this on this sector with General William Hardee. After the war, he would write that friend and foe soon learned to watch the course of the blue flag with a white moon that marked the spot where Claiborne's was in battle. Where their numbers defended, no odds broke their lines. Where their numbers attacked, no odds ever resisted their onslaught, save only once. And there is the grave of Claiborne and his gallant division. And that doesn't mean Claiborne, first thing he'd tell me, he said, "I'm not important than these men. All the credit belongs to my noble division, not myself." But not only his division, Cheatham's division, Loring's division, French's division, and then they're not remembered nationally, except for students like Ed Bars and people like you. But the masses, what's that, Franklin? What's that?
What is your opinion on
why it wasn't remembered more?
Well, the West compared to the East, let's face it, Virginia, and Robert E. Lee, at the end of the war, Nashville overshadowed this. It was such a bloody mess that you didn't even get 3% of it. Not even 3, maybe 1%. And a lot of people, those town people, they thought their men died in vain. They didn't want to remember it. Confederates wouldn't talk about it unless you served. Even Sherman said that the Battle of Nashville was fought at Franklin. That's not true, but I see what he's meaning in a way. And then the veterans are dying out, both sides, and then the people are growing on, and it goes up and down. They want to forget it, and then they want to remember it, and then they want to forget it.
Wasn't it overshadowed by Antietam and Gettysburg and Shiloh? These bigger,
that was earlier.
That was earlier.
But by '64, Nashville was so decisive, and that overshadowed this. And that's the big key there too, and people just didn't want to remember. I consider everybody a casualty in this battle that was in this middle thing, because you're killed, you're wounded, you captured, or you lived. You're haunted by this for the rest of your life. One Indiana captain was wounded but survived. It wasn't a bad, terrible wound, but he survived. He made it home to Indianapolis, and he gets off at the train, and the people, his neighbors, met him with terrible news that his wife and 2 daughters had died suddenly a few days before. He goes, "I'll be right back." He went around behind the train depot, blew his head off. He couldn't bear it. And they're haunted by this. I can't even begin to give you what type. They're haunted by this forever. There are veterans that seen a lot of dead people. Didn't bother them. Oh, look at that man with a head sticking out of the ground. That's a fine head of red hair right there. That's another. But here's different. How can you forget bodies 5, 6, 7 deep, and men standing up dead and shot to pieces and body? There's a dead drummer boy in the middle of the road, Federal with his drum behind. There's a dead Federal standing up by the apple tree over there, loading the crook still in the arm. And the arm still in the crook of the tree. He's still standing. There's everything. Who wants to remember that? It's like, but you can't forget it. It's forever haunted. And I can keep going on that vein, but that's the reason it wasn't remembered like it should have been. And the old veterans tried, but they're dying out, getting old, and then they're dying out, and the new generation, Now today, when I talked about Thompson Station, give lectures in the past, oh, that's 649. That's no battle. That's not important. I said, their descendants think it's important. And I've heard them say about Franklin, why do you concentrate on those back then? This is for the living today. They're dead. They don't matter. What about the World War II, Korea, Vietnam veterans and Saudi Arabia veterans and on and on? Oh, they're important. No, they're not important to them. They only care about their 5-year stretch around their own lives personally. They don't care about the people dying today, not the least. They'll say they will because they don't want to be yelled at, but they don't care about these people then. Define a moment in our nation's history. Both sides fought bravely. Both sides were gallant. Both sides are Americans, and they earned the right to be remembered. So we got more to do, especially Confederate Cemetery, and I got to get some water here. And but we're gonna cross. God help us cross that street. We're in one body.
We don't have time for the museum and Colonel Shy's coffin or any of that.
I don't. What time is it?
3:16. We're after 3.
Well, this is your tour. Where's the commanding general, Bryan and Doug?
Next. How much time do you still have?
Railroad cut right here. Those 10 cannons are behind you, about 150 yards. This is where Featherstone was caught, just shot the hell and back. The Osage Orange Hedge here said a rabbit could live in that cut. I wanted to take you here. Stop here, but it's too dangerous with the bus and whatever. But it is a most uninterpreted portion of the battlefield where the 3rd, 22nd, and 33rd Mississippi colors were captured right over there as well. Hell on earth that people tend to ignore this area. Yes, he should have, but he wouldn't wait on it. Yes, like I said, SD Lee didn't know a battle was going to be fought when he arrived here shocked. Couldn't believe it. That's all the rest of you. How many of you have been to the Confederate Cemetery here? We're going to go through a lot of stories, letters, diaries, very personal things, very poignant things. We're going to bring some of these people to life. We don't have time to do 200 stories that I know of or more, but we're going to do about 20 or so stories, and or more, a few more, but very poignant stories. I think this photo now. folks, we're going to walk to the end, not the civilian part, to the end, and then we'll work our way back this way. So let's walk through the gate, and I'll lead you down Confederate Cemetery. And God help me if I forget, owned by the United Confederacy Chapter number 14, managed by the trustees. And if somebody forgets that, they'll put you in the minutes. They'll remember you 100 years later. I love the daughters, but when I come there, my hat is in my hand. I'm saying yes ma'am and no ma'am. And you know the pecking order, and I know the pecking order is I'm at the bottom. And that's the way it is. And, or they'll put you in the minutes. They're wonderful ladies and stuff. But the men were buried in the trenches. And please forgive me, I'm a little tired here. And spring of 1866 started that terrible process of re-interring the dead over here to the cemetery. Sheldon asked, are these known? About the 555 are unknown of the almost 1,500 here. Although through the efforts of a lot of historians, me and a lot of others, we've identified 387 of the 555 unknown. About 150, some say more, some say less, died at Carnton. The 4 generals laid on the porch over there as well. Claiborne, Adams, Straw, and Granbury with 2 staff officers, Lieutenant Colonel R.B. Young and Lieutenant Marsh of Straw's staff. And this fence you see, Mary Gay, I'll show you her brother's grave, started that raising money over the South, and this was placed in 1867. This wrought iron fence here. And everything changes around it, but it all pretty much stays the same here. Those cedar trees are about 100. It's little trees in the 1880s, so you know that's about 120-year-old trees right there as well. But from every state is a representative here except for Virginia. And from here it's basically just the stories. And this is Marquis Lafayette Bryan from McGavock, Tennessee. He was 40 years old. He had 3 children and a wife named Selena. 28th Tennessee Company F, he's Carter's Brigade, Brown's Division. He's killed below the Carter House. And this is the last letter he had a chance to write his family before he was killed here. And it goes like this. Dalton, Georgia, April 16th, 1864. Dear wife, I embrace the present opportunity of sending you a few lines. I am well and have been with slight exceptions. James Bryant, Joseph Martin are well with their commands. I'm extremely anxious to see you and our dear ones. How hard and ruthless is the fate that separates us, whose affections are knitted by cords stronger than death, who are permitted to follow their destiny, would walk the journey of life with the same evenness and unvarying steps with which 2 twin stars promenade the blue pavement of the sky. To be thus separated, not only denied the sweet privilege of commingling in conversations and participating in those sweet caresses, so felicitous to those whose hearts beat in perfect unison, as if to one pulsation, but to be so separate as to not to be able to hear from each other. Let us trust He who directs all things well will yet so decree that we may live together as nature intended. Time and distance only strengthens my affections for you and my children. I do not know what your condition is. Bear your hard lot with patience. Upon the speedy arrival of the time, peace will be restored, all things set right. Remember that though far away, I think of you often. Will remain your devoted and affectionate husband until death, Marquis Lafayette Bryan. Now on a happy note, when I was at the Carter House, I don't know, in the 90s, this boy from New Jersey recited that letter on wherever, the museum, and he called me and he said, Mr. Cartwright, I said, my name's Thomas, my daddy's Mr. Oh, okay. And but he said, I'm getting ready to propose to my girlfriend. I'd like permission to get a copy of this and recite this to her. Go for it. And I sent him a letter. She accepted. He has 3 children now, and I hope it made Marquis happy. I hope it would.